I grew up in Taiwan, hearing stories about my grandparents and my dad in China. My dad was born in China back in 1924. I wasn't there, but that's the year I heard that he was born there. And he had lots of stories, or he has some stories about his parents and life in China. Now, they worked in a small village called Hequ. To get to Hequ, you had to take a train from Tianjin or Beijing to a town called Datong, and then take a bus from Datong to a town called Suozhou. And then from Suozhou, you walked for 11 days to get to Hequ. You walked for 11 days with carts. You would hire men that would pull carts that had your luggage, or you hired donkeys, and on the sides of either side of the donkey, you didn't ride on the donkey, they carried your supplies that you were going to have for the next 6 months or a year. So my dad was telling a story, two stories I'm going to tell you today. One time, he felt so guilty. He was supposed to be walking. He was a young boy, maybe 6, 7 years old. He was strong enough to walk, and the donkeys were carrying the heavy load. And he was tired, and somehow his dad gave him permission to ride on the donkey. And while he was riding on the donkey, he was enjoying it. You know, he's a young kid. And his dad said, okay, Eddie, my dad's name was Edvard, but they called him Eddie. Eddie, you need to get down. And my dad swung at his father, my grandfather, and hit him in the head. And now you need to know, these are canyons. It would be like Arizona or New Mexico on steep ledges. The donkeys are walking on steep ledges. And my dad, when he hit my grandfather, he fell over off the ledge of the cliff. And my dad's heart just stopped. There was a ledge about 8, 9 feet down that my grandfather landed on. But it shook up my father. He never forgot not respecting his father, hitting his father when his father was actually trying to take care of him. Well, I don't know if it was this trip or another trip, but there was another trip where they were doing the 11-day trip to Hequ, and they get to a canyon. And they get to the ledge of the canyon, and they look down. There's a river at the bottom of the canyon. They've got to find a way down to the river, cross the river, and then come up the other side of the canyon. So there, you can look straight across to the other side of the canyon. It's not that far away. And there are a bunch of bandits on the other side of the canyon. One of them sitting on his horse, and the others are just, standing around, and they're just kind of waiting. They know these foreigners. There's no other road. They have to come through there. Why should they go down the canyon, come up the other side to attack the Norwegians? Just wait for them to come, because then we'll take what they have. And my grandpa, Peter Toriusen, is trying to figure out what to do. So he tells the family and all the others that are with him and the coolies that are hauling the carts, you guys all stay here. So my grandfather walked down the canyon, crossed the river, climbed up the other side of the canyon, met the bandits, and then they went behind the hills. No one could see him. For hours, he was gone. And I don't know what my grandmother thought. I don't know what my dad, my uncles and aunts thought, but it must have been scary. Well, hours later, he comes back to the ledge of the canyon, and he walks down the canyon, the cliff, crosses the river, and comes up back the side of the canyon that the family was on. And my grandmother goes, Edvard, what happened? And he said, oh, nothing. They're going to give us safe conduct all the way to Hequ. Well, how did that happen? Well, they don't get tea very often. And I had a can of tea in my pocket. And so I invited them to have a cup of tea with me. If they would boil the water, I would provide the tea. And they hadn't had tea in months. And so we had some tea together. And then I looked at the bandit chief, the head of the bandits, and he didn't have any shoes. So I took off my shoes and said, you're the chief of this bandit group, and you don't have shoes. You need face. You don't want to lose your face. You need face. Take my shoes so that you're honorable before your colleagues and your others that you meet. And so he took Grandpa's shoes and put them on. And he said, I will protect you. Wherever you go, I will take care of you. I don't know what the spiritual lesson is in this, I just think of my grandfather being sensitive to the situation, not being afraid for his own life. He didn't live by fear. He lived by what would God be doing? What could God do in this situation? And he gave up the little he had. It didn't matter to him, but he got safety for his family, and they escorted him all the rest of the way to Hequ. What drives our life? Do we live in fear? Do we live in trying to keep control? This was completely out of control. So one more crazy God story. There you go.